Welcome to the Classy Liberal podcast. I'm your host, Classy Liberal.
I'm your co-host, Otterface.
Today's guest is one whose head is always burning, either from spending too much time debunking race realism or too much time working with a Bunsen burner. It's Sandre Speaks. How are you, man?
Hello. I prefer just Sandre because Sandre Speaks is just the name of a channel.
Sure.
Sandre is something I've gone with now for over 10 years.
Sure. All right. I'll call you that then. So, what is with your head? Is always on fire.
Okay. I've had different avatars, of course, but this one I've had now for what is it, like 3.5 years, maybe something like that. I decided to go with it, and there's a multitude of reasons as to why I have the avatar I have now. One of them is because at the time I made videos making fun of the Otherkin community, and I just came up with, well, fuck it, I'm just gonna save it on Firekit, and I'm gonna fuck with these people. And it was hilarious because like they realized that I was a troll, but they couldn't really call me that because they claimed to be fucking ponies and I don't know, fucking wolves and shit, you know. So yeah, it's kind of like throwing stones in a glass house. So they sort of had to accept me as one of them, even though they knew that I wasn't one of them and I was just trolling. But anyway, then it's also that I am a chemistry student, and you know, I sometimes burn stuff, and you know, I just thought of the idea, well, maybe I should have like a chemical reaction in a suit, and the suit I chose because it was a meme at the point, like, why do you all skeptics have suits? You know, so that's why. But and also there's a third reason to conclude this holy trinity of mine. That doesn't sound self-absorbed or anything, I know. But anyway, it's also that when I'm done with people, they're burned.
You roasted them.
Oh no. Okay. Oh shit! I unintentionally am part of the meme now because I just noticed I'm always wearing a suit.
I mean, that's how it gets to you, man. It's like, bam, you're stuck. You're a skeptic trademark now.
Oh,
I appeal to the animated animal avatar community, I think.
Although animated avatars is also kind of a cliche.
Yeah, true.
all right.
Not animated avatar, cartoon avatar rather.
Cartoon, right. All right. So I wanted to start with with organic chemistry. So what made you wanted to study organic chemistry or pursue a career in organic chemistry?
Well, I don't know where you got the idea, but I'm in organic because I'm not. I have a friend, Zabi, who I
I might be confusing you with him.
Yeah, he's an organic chemistry student. However, I'm not going to go into organic or bio. I find that stuff fascinating, of course, like all fields of chemistry, but it's not something I feel any need to go into. It's not really something that I find most interesting. I'm actually more interested in fields such as quantum chemistry or physical chemistry, or perhaps nanochemistry, material chemistry, that is. That's really what I find more interesting. So instead of trying to find, you know, a cure for AIDS or cancer, I rather want to focus on finding a way to make solar panels more efficient, for instance, you know, or alternatively, maybe find a cure for the gayness that is the trap fascination riddling the internet right now, because my God, that's fucking cancer and it needs to fucking die.
You know, Black Lightning might be watching the stream.
Oh, he's exempted.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah, no, that dude is just fucking fabulous. He's a friend. I fucking love hanging out with him. He's okay. So when the trap holocaust comes, he's not expendable.
He's an honorary what do you call it? Honorary
normie.
Honorary normie. Yeah, whatever.
Right. Although let's be honest, I'm hardly what you could call normal.
Of course. So did you always wanted to study chemistry?
I mean, pretty much. I always found it very interesting. I mean, I found I remember when we started to learn about the natural sciences in very basic levels of school, and I found it like whenever we came anywhere close to the topic of chemistry, I always just immediately found it very interesting, just the idea of finding out what things are actually made out of, and also a potential way of poisoning the teacher I didn't like. Just normal kid stuff. Nothing serious at all. But also when I when I went to high school, we actually started to learn about the subjects independently. And biology was it was okay. Like it's fascinating and whatnot, but it wasn't really what captivated me. Physics a little bit more interesting to me, but still not really a winner. But when we got to learn about chemistry, I just found it so fucking fascinating how these really atoms are the universe's Lego bricks. And once you figure out how to manipulate them to bond, like you can make magic happen. Like you can do anything. Like really, and the thing is as well, new breakthroughs in chemistry is also the key to a lot of the big breakthroughs in the other fields such as biology and physics as well. Because the physicists who study the stars, I mean, we need a very specific type of glass, for instance, to look at all those stars. Now who comes up with that shit? Well, it's people in my field. Really, when you think about it, we essentially hold all the other scientists by the balls.
Yeah, but well, chemistry is, after all, the study of matter.
Yes.
Yeah, but I mean, physics.
It's also the study that matters. But
okay. Okay. So to tell me about quantum chemistry, because I'm a bit ignorant on that subject.
Oh, I mean, it's not really something that you can really simplify, but I'll try, I guess. Okay, so the thing about quantum mechanics is really just a mathematical model, and how you apply that mathematical model is really what determines if you're dealing with quantum physics or quantum chemistry. Quantum chemists use quantum mechanics. The mathematical model, they use it to understand binding energies between atoms in a molecule, for instance. They use it to understand how electrons are essentially placed around molecules, the density of the electron cloud, for instance. They also use it to understand reaction mechanisms and whatnot, how the electrons are actually moving about to be transported. And all of this is very important because we need to, for instance, have you heard of what the fuck is it called again? Superconducting materials.
I've heard of that term, yeah.
Yeah. The key to understanding how to make materials superconductive even at higher temperatures, it fundamentally comes down to quantum chemistry. We need to understand how the electrons are placed, and we also need to understand the energy levels and whatnot. And that's how we can break that. Quantum chemistry also explains, for instance, the phenomena of magnetism to a large extent, because atoms, they have a certain spin, and if you can align enough atoms in a metal, for instance, to spin in the same direction, you're going to have a stronger magnetic field. So, and also quantum chemistry explains why some molecules are diamagnetic or paramagnetic and whatnot. So, I mean, it's a very interesting field in my opinion. But yeah, that's about as simple as I can make it.
Sure, yeah, because I just learned about the subject very recently, and I was a bit confused about it. So, just to clarify, would you say that like quantum chemistry is just another way of saying how quantum mechanics relates to chemistry?
I mean, again, quantum mechanics is really just it's just a mathematical model, really, and how it's used is really what defines your field. Like, it's shared both in physics and chemistry, and it's just how you use it. The thing is also, another thing that people need to understand is that there's a fundamental difference in how the universe is viewed in physics and chemistry. Like, there is a reason why these are separate sciences to begin with. And for instance, how we view atoms is fundamentally different. In physics, it's viewed as a wave function. The nucleus, for instance, in nuclear chemistry, we view it more as marbles. And one model explains how elements change identity when you have transmutation, for instance, because of the box principle, which goes back to discrete mathematics, while the wave function explains the energy levels of the atomic nucleus. But they're fundamentally different. They cannot be... they're incompatible, yet they're both equally true in the sense that they both make accurate predictions for their intended purposes. But they are fundamentally incompatible as well, which is very paradoxical, but that's the nature of reality.
Okay, and then how would you say, what would be the difference between the chemist view of the universe and the physics view of the universe?
Believe it or not, because I know I may not be the best example of this, but the chemist tends to be more humble.
Okay.
I mean, well, what I mean by that is there's a very reductionist mindset I've noticed with physicists, and I've bitched and complained about physicists before, and how they seem to think they understand the other sciences, but it turns out that they really don't, and they don't know nearly as much as they think they do. And I think chemists tend to be a bit more humble and say that, well, no, this is really just a model, and it's useful, and it's what we use to describe this kind of situation and make these kinds of predictions. But we don't claim to ever be able to come up with a theory of everything regarding chemistry. You know, we don't really think that works that way. But it's like I said, if you take the atomic nucleus, for instance, the physical viewpoint, in order to make physics make sense, is that the atomic nucleus is a wave function entirely. The chemical viewpoint is that it's more like stationary, well, not stationary, but fixed marbles. And if you take away one, you fundamentally change the identity of the atomic nucleus. And yeah, that's one way to describe the difference. But it's like I said, they are different sciences for a reason. And it's because fundamentally what they describe is not really compatible, and yet they are both, for all intents and purposes, equally true in the sense that they work to perform the prediction that they are intended to perform. But that's how science works. You know, it's all about being able to make predictions. And we have different models for different situations.
Sure. Okay, let's move on to a less heavy topic so we don't lose my non-existent viewers. So what made you start a YouTube channel?
Oh, I had one YouTube channel 2 years before I started my first Sandre channel, and I started that one back in 2006, and it was like very crude videos, just very fucking amateurish. Just me making videos about atheism and whatnot. And then in 2008, I opened up my Sandre channel. I was called the Sandre Guy at the time. I made almost exclusively videos about atheism, and I debunked creationist nonsense and responded to fundamentalist Christians about their viewpoints and whatnot.
The good old days of YouTube skepticism.
Yeah, you know, one trademark is not enough when you describe that time period. You need two of them fuckers, you know. That's how much of skepticism you had. Mucho skepticism. But anyway, I was just a fucking teenager back then, and I was, you could sort of tell by my videos, they were not nearly as polished as they are now. And, you know, it was a valuable experience, I think. And it was something I just did for fun, just because I saw a bunch of bullshit and I was like, you know, my teen brain thought, well, you know, I've listened to like an hour of Hitchens, so obviously I'm like a super intellectual. I can easily take on these these arguments, and of course,
You're a man of many minds.
yes, you know, 1 hour of Hitchens. That's all you need. That's all you need. No, and it was no, and I also listened to Richard Dawkins and whatnot, of course, which was like almost it was definitely expected of you at the time. It was almost elemental at the time, but and of course, you know, I could easily take apart the videos I was responding to, but honestly, it doesn't really say much because the quality of the opposition back then, like they didn't even really try in the beginning. It wasn't really later on until like 2009, 2010 that they really tried to make an effort at least. But yeah, no, it's really how it started. I was just a bored teenager, and I felt like, man, there's a lot of dumb motherfuckers online. I better do something about this, you know? But yeah, and I mean, why I continue is because I noticed that, hey, I mean, people for some reason actually appreciate what I'm doing, and you know, I just it's a hobby. It's I almost find it a bit therapeutic, if you will. Yeah, I like it. I just find it enjoyable, and I like the idea of people watching my stuff. I'm not getting paid to do it. It's so far entirely just because I want to, and I just like the idea of people watching my stuff, getting inspired, getting feedback, and having a successful discussion arising out of it. That gives me a lot of joy, really. You know, as amazing as it is to believe that a cynical asshole like me can actually feel joy, but I actually can, yes.
Right, of course. So, okay, have you ever been in any debates online, like on a stream or anything like that?
Oh, yeah, plenty. I mean, partially my own stream, Sandre streams, for instance, had like, in the very first season of it, I think it was episode 9. Yeah, episode 9. I had like a fucking 3-hour-long debate with Justicar about the death penalty, and those are 3 hours that I will never get back in my life. And no, but I mean, it was an interesting discussion, and although I definitely don't agree with him, I mean, I'm against the death penalty, he's for it. I think just the fact that I had that debate for 3 hours, it was something I chose to do because it was sort of just to mark to my audience that, hey, usually we're very silly on the stream, but you know, we can be serious too. I can be very serious. If I need to be serious, I can be very fucking serious, and I have to be. I mean, in academia, I can't just walk around in the halls of academia and busting balls like I'm doing now. You know, it just doesn't really work like that. Although it is very therapeutic of me to do so.
Of course. Yeah, the debate game is something I definitely want to start doing soon, because I definitely have a lot of opinions on a lot of issues that I definitely, I want to sort of express, and I want to, talk with other people, because, I enjoy disagreements. It gets boring when all you do is just talk to someone or talk to people in general. When you put yourself in an echo chamber, and it's just with only people that agree with you on everything.
Echo chambers are so boring.
They really are.
I mean, it's not even the danger of stagnation of ideas that I worry about. It's just they're boring. Like, God, so boring. Like I just, whenever I find myself in an echo chamber, I just want to stir up shit, just to have some kind of conflict. Like,
just disagree.
Yes, exactly. Like it's not that I seek conflict. It's just I don't give a shit. Like I'm not afraid of conflict. I actually think that conflict is perfectly natural. You will have them, so you might as well be experienced with them. But yeah, it's important that you are exposed to ideas that you don't agree with, because you will be, like you may have your safe space, and you may try and spend as much time as you can in your safe space, but at some point you will have to interact with the real world, and if you are too thin-skinned, well, you're going to bleed out in the fucking street. It's just how it is.
Yeah, I disagree. I disagree to break the echo chamber for the sake of it.
Yeah, at some point we're just gonna have to purposely say things that we don't agree with ourselves, just to break the echo chamber.
You contrarians make me sick.
I think it's YouTube's fault as well, because obviously if you watch one video, it'll recommend like 10 other videos that'll probably appeal to you. So I don't think it's entirely the person's fault, although they can't. It's not entirely an excuse.
Yeah. I mean, speaking of echo chambers, I put up a video today actually because I was late with a video I was supposed to put up yesterday, but I'm gonna have to put it up tomorrow because my fucking editing software, I guess it's female because it doesn't want to work. Yeah. Yeah, so I put up like an older video that I had polished and added like I fixed with the sound, removed all the fucking noise and whatnot from it, just improved the re-rendered it as well in higher resolution and whatnot. Put it up today, and it's called First Amendment and Conservative Hypocrites. And I remember when I first put up that video back in March of 2017. And oh boy, did it stir up shit. Did it stir up shit? Because back then, I almost exclusively made videos against the regressive left, against SJWs and whatnot. And this, for once, like I made a video about how this guy, who I don't know if he's a conservative or not, he may not be, but the people reacting to the story, though, it's really more about them. But this guy, he disrupts this protest by, I guess some of the protesters may have been Antifa members and whatnot, but they weren't violent or anything. Like they just wanted to use their First Amendment right to protest. Mm-hmm. And I thought their protest was fucking silly and whatnot, as it usually is. But you know what? They have a right to protest. Like, as long as they don't break shit, I don't see a reason for you to intervene. But, you know, he intervenes, this FedEx guy, and he just tries to prevent them from burning the American flag. And in this video, I just exposed the hypocrisy of people like Ann Coulter, also known as the sister of Skeletor, who reacted in disgust to these people who wanted to burn the American flag. And she wrote on Twitter shit like, "Oh, I'm only going to get FedEx now because I like their employees. Good job." You know, and it's like, you guys are applauding censorship. You're applauding these people not being allowed to protest under the First fucking Amendment. You guys are anything but fucking patriots. You fucking hypocrites, you know?
Sandre, why are you such an SJW?
I know. I mean, like, I've criticized Antifa and SJWs like, what is it, like, at least 3 times more than anyone on the right. But no, you're correct. Obviously, I'm an SJW because I point out that everyone, even Antifa members, have freedom of speech. You know,
if you disagree on one thing, that means you disagree with everything. You're totally different in their eyes. You've changed, as I often heard.
You've sold out, man.
Oh, you disagree on this one thing? Then, oh my God, you've changed. Oh, your content's
really gone downhill, man. You ain't the same, man. You suck now.
You must hate free speech.
How ironic. But yeah, no, I got a lot of shit for that video. It's also the same thing with another video that I plan to re-upload, also polished at some future date. It's called the Thin Southern Line, and I put that one up in 2017 too, I think, or late 2016. And it's about me criticizing Lauren Southern. It's like a half an hour long, and it's just, I mean, God, that one really fucking pissed off the alt-right, for instance. Like, but the funny thing is, they tried their damnedest to downvote it, and they fucking failed because it went viral. Got a bunch of fucking dislikes, of course, but way more likes. And I mean, it seemed like people had sense to realize that, hey, Lauren Southern is anything but a fucking journalist. And that was also when I actually, for the most part, had criticized SJWs up until that point. And it's I mean, you know, just look at my catalog. I still criticize SJWs as, you know, one should. It's just during the last year and a half, maybe 2 years, I've expanded my palate, if you will. Now I taste the shit from 2 directions. Hopefully I won't contract cholera.
Well, a lot of sorry to interrupt, but like a lot of new YouTube, but a lot of like the sort of like people in the anti-social justice sphere are starting to sort of become more self-aware that like, you know, there's a lot of stupid stuff in our side, and there's a lot of not everything that's like on our side is necessarily like, how do you can say, intelligent. Like, how do I put this? Like, you oh, Otterface. I mean, you do this as well, where you sort of like, you point out certain disagreements you have with Paul Joseph Watson or Jordan Peterson. You know, you sort of how do you put this? Grill people's sacred cows,
You
right?
need to become one with Dostoevsky. Clean your room, Bucko.
The thing with Jordan Peterson, I probably agree with him a lot more than I disagree, but I just don't think most of his rhetoric is just not really that like profound, and I feel like they treat him as if he's just the next, like, literally someone. I think it was Ian Miles Chong who called him like the next Christopher Hitchens or some shit like that. And I was like, you're treating this guy as if he's like said something profound when really he's just, most of the stuff he said outside of the clinical psychology sort of bit, because that's, you know, he is actually an expert in that. But outside of that, he's literally just saying everything that everyone says, like, you know, about social justice warriors are bad, we need to fight for free speech, and all that stuff that, like, it's been said so many times, but yet, you know, he's the one getting like book deals and tours all around the world and stuff like that.
I mean, I can bring up my last video I did on him, because I did like a series. I don't know if you saw it, but did this series on Jordan Peterson, which really was inspired by the fact that one of my videos, actually you do know this, Otter, one of my videos where I debunk his claims of the Nazis being atheist.
Oh yeah,
got false flagged by his fucking fans. You know, so much for the intellectual arena of open discussion, you know, so much for that shit.
I mean, if you're gonna pull up these like old arguments that've been debunked like many years ago, like this is it's just sad to see him like make, like, I feel like if he wants to be a Christian, if he wants to make religious advocacy argument, that's fine. But don't use like arguments that have been debunked like many years ago. Like I would assume someone as intelligent as him, someone who's supposed to be like the intellectual of this era, will be aware that this is something that like Christians have been trying to use for years, and it just doesn't work if you have a basic understanding of history and Nazi ideology.
When it comes to like, when it comes to like, you know, when they'll talk, I'm starting to notice it becoming more and more like it's considered like a serious like talk about, when people used to say like, oh, atheism, oh, that started like Stalin or whatever. I'm starting to notice a lot of people using that talking point a lot more seriously whenever someone brings up like atheism, or when Jordan Peterson does anyway. Not him specifically, but I've noticed a lot that talking point starting to be taken a lot more seriously. Especially, you know, when they're talking about like when someone talks about religion or whether from like, you know, from an atheist point of view, you're getting a lot of I'm starting to notice it anyway, getting people doing the whole, oh, Stalin was an atheist and look what we do if atheism rules the land, and then that leads into like people becoming apologists for Christianity as well, which I'm starting to notice as well.
One of the most controversial things I said, Bill, about Jordan Peterson, like I said, it was the very last video I did on him, and it's going to be the last one until he makes some other fucking stupid public statement or whatever, which I don't think it's going to take too long, to be honest. But it was the one where I explained how Jordan Peterson himself, not only doesn't he really understand the difference between Marxism and postmodernism, and let me just make this fucking clear to anyone who's listening. I'm neither a Marxist or a postmodernist. I think both ideas are really silly and stupid. I've never devoted myself to either of them, and I find them both to be just, like I said, really, really stupid and silly. However, it's clear that he doesn't know the difference between them, and so his critique of postmodernism and Marxism doesn't really hold much water, and it only really does himself and others who are against these ideas a disservice, because he becomes a clown that is easily debunkable by his opposition, because he's too arrogant, I guess, to actually see if he actually understands it or not. And in my video, I show how he doesn't understand what postmodernism is, and he confuses it with Marxism, and he does it repeatedly, and blah, 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 blah. And not only that, but I also show I also show how he himself uses actually classical postmodernist rhetorical vices, and he will even rephrase and give words an entirely new meaning in a debate or a discussion, just to support his case. One of them cases being where he was talking about the nature of truth with Sam Harris, who I also, by the way, I'm not a fan of Sam Harris either. I'm planning a video or two about the guy as well, because I think
you're
he's
gonna
very
kill another sacred cow.
Yeah, I mean, Sam Harris is one of those people like, oh my God, that guy is so smart. He's a neuroscientist. And I'm like, well, yeah, sure, he's a neuroscientist, but obviously he doesn't have much integrity because he let some fucking Charles Murray on his fucking podcast, and he honestly believes in racial IQ, which is just fucking nonsensical and not supported by neuroscience at all. But, you know, forget about that because it's fucking Sam Harris, I guess. Whatever he says is the word, you know, the true word of fucking neuroscience, I guess. Whatever. But, that's the thing that really bothers me about Jordan Peterson. I don't really care much about the guy per se. It's his fans. It's the idolization of him. I wouldn't care about him if it wasn't for the fact that his fans are so fucking defensive of him, and it's pretty much undeniable at this point that there is a cult of personality.
What do you mean by idolize and defensive?
I mean, there is a cult of personality around Jordan Peterson. That's pretty much undeniable at this point. He is one of those people that you can't really criticize because then you get fucking sworn with essentially white knights for him. I've seen it firsthand. I've been the victim of it, and like I just don't give a shit. Like, these people are pretty fucking easy to just, you know, blow out of the air, and they don't really offer much of a challenge for me, to be honest. But so I can deal with it. But some people who want to criticize the guy, maybe they just can't handle the pressure of constantly being bombarded with people claiming that, oh, you're just misrepresenting him, or you don't understand this, you need to watch this, or, you know, you're taking this out of context and blah, 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 blah. And it's like, oh, well, how many videos do I have to make showing him to be inaccurate for you to understand? But he is not infallible.
You're gonna have to debunk like every single video on his YouTube channel.
I guess.
Yeah.
But like, why is that a problem with Jordan Peterson fans? Like, I just want to clarify. Like, I liked a lot of the things Jordan Peterson says. I have some agreements with him, lots of disagreements with him though. But I don't personally have anything against him. But why is it like his fans are so, I guess you could say, toxic in a way that like they literally think that see him, not literally, I'm sorry, they figuratively see him as like basically like, you know, the end all be all of like, you know, intellectual discussions and whatnot.
I mean, go ahead.
I think it's the same with Dave Rubin as well. Like, I think just the reason why they defend him so much is because, you know, he appeals to the things that they're interested in, and as a result, because he appeals to what the few things that they're interested in, everything else becomes secondary. Even if he says some like great weird stuff, like he'll say like the atheists actually are religious because they don't rape or murder people, and he'll say something like that. But I think they ignore that because of some of the speech, some of the rhetoric that he does, like free speech and so on. They just ignore everything else. And I think that's why I think that's the same with Dave Rubin when it comes to the people he interviews as well. Even if they're the weirdest people ever, or even if they say some weird batshit stuff, they agree with him on the stuff that he's interested in. So he looks away. He turns a blind eye to the weird stuff. I think that's really why a lot of Jordan Peterson fans will blindly defend him.
You sound like you're part of the regressive left.
I mean, I would like to say though, like I said before, it's partially that, but it's a very extreme case with Jordan Peterson, and I think what makes the difference between him and other people who simply have a very strong fan base, because it's not just a strong fan base with Jordan Peterson, like maybe Dave Rubin has, but it's extreme. It's extreme to the point where it's a cult of personality even, and I think the reason why that is because what separates Jordan Peterson and Dave Rubin is that Jordan Peterson, like I said, he engages in postmodernist rhetorical vices. I mean, I'm not even sure if he's even aware of it, to be honest, because it just sort of, it's almost like second nature to him at this point. But when he talks, I know, because I used to listen to him as well. I used to listen to him back in 2015 or so, and I used to enjoy a lot of his lectures. It's just, eventually I started to notice that, hey, he repeats a lot of things over and over again. And that's kind of weird. And also, I noticed how he started to make very inaccurate, claims and whatnot. That's really when I started to realize that, hey, he's actually wrong on certain things. And I tried to bring it up to people, but I noticed how even back then, people were very resilient to actually see how he was wrong about something. One of those things, like the very first thing I made a video about when it came to Jordan Peterson, was his claims about IQ. And this was also the third video in my IQ series. And Jordan Peterson makes the claim that IQ is very much fixed. You can't really improve someone's IQ. He also makes the claim that IQ is like this very predictable predictor of how you will end up in life. You can make all kinds of predictions based on IQ results, and they always turn out to be true, and blah 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 blah. And I show that no, IQ is not fixed. We know, and it's funny because in that video I literally show like I think 50 studies or so proving him wrong, and these studies go as far back as the 1930s. Yes, we've known since the 1930s, Jordan, that no, you can increase IQ, and you can do it by quite a lot. You can do it by almost a standard deviation, even with intervention in school and whatnot. Even adults can increase their IQ. So if IQ really is this real thing that you want to make it out to be, it's still not a fixed thing. It can actually be improved by environment. Like, we know this. We have evidence of this. So that's wrong. And also, I show in my video that IQ is also not this very reliable predictor at all. Like, the coefficient between how you will end up in life and your IQ results, it's only a moderate correlation. It's somewhere around 0.4, which in any social science is only a moderate correlation. In order to have a strong correlation, you would need at least 0.6. But yeah, it's only 0.4. So yeah, there is some correlation, but this can in turn easily be explained by the fact that you have an equally strong correlation between education and where you will end up in life, you know? And there is an even stronger predictor of where you will end up in life, and that's personality. Yes, personality has somewhere around 0.6 and 0.7, far stronger, noticeably stronger than IQ. So when it comes to those two claims, he can shove it up his postmodernist ass.
Okay, so I'm glad you brought up race realism, and well, you talked about IQ mostly, but it's connected with the whole race realism question, though. That was actually one of the topics I was really excited to talk about. So I kind of hate myself for not knowing about your channels or channels before, because you make really good content. But the way I found out about you was I saw Crown T's series on race realism. Of course, you were in his video. So yeah, what's the deal with race realism? Why is that all of a sudden such a hot topic now? There's a feedback.
Oh, I mean, there's a multitude of reasons. Partially it's just that the pendulum, like always, it swings back and forth between the two extremes, the left and the right. And we've had a period now where we've had an extreme of left, and now we're entering a new period of an extreme of the right. And it's partially they're just riding that wave naturally. However, this pendulum swing, just like the one before it, is more extreme than it usually is. And there's a multitude of reasons as to why that is. You have, for instance, I mean, think about it. You've had for years now a genuine problem of ideologues trying to micromanage people's lives, trying to force them to use certain pronouns and whatnot, and annoying people with their fucking Bechdel tests and at the movies, and trying to enforce, gender-neutral daycares and shit. And trying to essentially boss people around. And, people don't take kindly to that, which I understand perfectly well, because I hate that shit too. I mean, I just think people should be left alone as long as they don't hurt anyone. But yeah, so you have this resentment among people when it comes to the SJWs. And I mean, people have been aware of the SJW phenomena in the mainstream for, I mean, at least a couple of years now. They are aware, and thankfully the SJWs have for a while now lost traction, and they are actually receding. They're losing more and more grounds, which is good. But it means though that people have a natural resentment, and sadly I've noticed that there is this phenomena in politics where if people are tired of one extreme, they become either they seek the other extreme, or the majority of people of course don't do that, but the majority of people will still become more lax when it comes to the other extreme and not be as reactant to it because they're not fed up with those guys yet. They're just fed up with the other guys. So they're not as much on guard when it comes to the other extreme. And I think that's partially what it is. And I mean, I've heard so many fucking excuses as to why people don't talk about race realism as an actual threat. Like, oh, well, you know, these guys are just a bunch of Nazis. Like, you know, they're never going to get any actual power. They're not ever gonna, you know, have any actual change in society. Well, that's exactly what people said 10 years ago when the SJWs started to sort of pop up, you know? People said, well, look at these guys. What they're proposing is fucking ridiculous. No one's gonna buy this shit. They're never gonna get any actual power. And what do you know? Then you have gender pronoun laws, you know, in certain states and whatnot. So it's and at that point, however, what's important to keep in mind is that during that time, people were just sick and tired of the Tea Party, of the right. And the Republican Party, not the Democratic Party at the time, were the ones who were fucking insane, you know? So it's like I said, it goes back and forth like with this, like a fucking pendulum. And it's just that this time it's more extreme. So partially that explains it. But it's also that there's kind of an arrogance these days, I would say, among people. And I know how I'm going to sound now. I'm going to sound like a grumpy old man for saying this, but God, do I hate my generation. I'm serious. I fucking despise my generation. I cannot stand my generation. My generation sucks, not for the reasons as you may think. Like, there is this myth that my generation is like lazy and doesn't want to put in any work and is entitled and blah, blah, blah. No, I don't think that's what's going on. That's not my impression at all. But what I have noticed is my generation, without a doubt, is more sensitive and is more expectant of protection than previous generations. My generation is also not as capable as previous generations. And that in of itself has a multitude of reasons as to why that is. But also my generation is the result of the second or third generation of fatherlessness, of emasculation of society, of toxic ideologies that have been seeping into our cultural framework for decades without any real acknowledgement even. And, you know, that's partially what's going on here. And you have this phenomena as well of kids these days. They want to be edgy, you know, and what's edgier? What's edgier than writing gas to juice online? One tactic, and I mean, you know, you can laugh at this, but this is actually the case. The alt-right and the race realists especially, they love the meme culture that exists right now, the edginess of it, because it's the perfect cover, you know? And, you know, of course, the answer is not to silence yourself, to hold back and not make crude jokes and whatnot. But that's not what I'm saying here in any way. What I'm saying, though, is when you have a group of people who keep memeing about throwing commies out of helicopters, and they do it over and 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 over again. Like, at some point, it stops being a meme and it starts becoming a calling, you know? Like, I mean, it's one thing to be edgy. I mean, fuck, I browse fucking at 4chan and 8chan. I know edgy. I love those websites. I love being edgy myself in my streams and whatnot. I'm edgy, like, when I'm talking to you guys right here, right now. I don't care. Like, I can make all kinds of crude jokes. It's just, when you notice that people do it over and over again, and it's the same shit over and over again, you can be pretty certain that at that point, it's not about being edgy anymore. It's actually a dog whistle, you know? And that's the thing. These people, we know this. They hide behind the current meme culture, and it's the perfect cover for them, and it gives them plausible deniability. Like, oh, I'm not a
Just
racist.
a meme.
It's just a meme, bro.
It's just a meme. Like,
Why are you
guess
so
the Jews. Ha ha ha.
Why are you so sensitive to jokes, Sandre?
Yeah.
It's just a meme. Don't you understand the Holocaust? It's just a meme.
I mean, it's only like the 630,000th time I hear the commie helicopter joke. But I'm sure it's just a joke at this point. No. But that's the thing. Memes are supposed to live, and then they're supposed to die. And if you see almost if you see a meme almost being held up at this point by stilts, it's probably not a meme anymore.
Mm.
And that's what I've noticed. So yeah, it's also that they're hiding behind the current meme culture, which is perfect. The edginess is perfect cover for actual racists and whatnot. And I'm not some fucking paranoid SJW who is like, oh, this means that anyone who writes an offensive comment or makes an offensive joke is a fucking racist or anything. I'm just saying it's something to keep in mind. Mm-hmm. And even I, however, am kind of shocked at the revelations of some of the YouTubers, for instance, who have turned out to be, at least very sympathetic to the alt-right and even siding with some of these race realist positions. It's kind of scary, to be honest, how many people did without question, Mm. And I think some of those people probably always had those views and they just hid them until the right moment, which is even scarier, actually, because it tells you that some of these people, they're cryptos,
Mm.
Yeah.
And they hide in plain sight. And but yeah, that's just how it is when you have these ideologues. And sadly, you have a bunch of impressionable and gullible young people online who will go along with it because they think it's just a meme. Mm-hmm. And without knowing it, some of them are being indoctrinated into this race realist nonsense. And some of them just aren't aware that they're actually helping their cause in that sense.
Mm. Yeah, it's good to keep keep an eye on it while at the same time defending those who are actually just making a joke at the same time. But you can do both, of course, can't you? Yeah.
Oh yeah, but because I mean it's hard to know who is actually making a joke and who actually isn't. And the proper response to that is to simply just say, well, you know what, it's I know it's just a joke, but here's the thing, even if it is a joke, here's the statistics that disproves that joke, just in case, I know it's a joke. You see, it's a joke. I mean, it's a joke that you've been saying 630.
Joke.
It's a joke that you've been saying for 630,000 fucking times now. I don't think it's a joke anymore. But you know what? Let's say that it's just a joke. But here's a refutation, just in case. Just in case. Like, if it's just a joke, you shouldn't be offended by me responding that way.
Slide it under.
Yeah, right. Yeah, and then that's I think the answer to it. Just accept. Okay, fine. It's just a joke, but here's the refutation, just in case. And if you really are just memeing and joking, you shouldn't even be offended that I'm responding to it. And if you are offended, that does mean something, though. It means that because it raises the question: why do you have something against me reacting to it? That's really how you sort of weed these people out, I guess.
Okay, so how would you respond to those that say that because race is such a taboo subject to talk about, this race realism stuff, the reason why it's not popular, or why there's no general consensus on it in academia, is because it's just hard to talk about, because how do I put this, how to explain this, because it's basically the more something is hard to talk about, the more likely there might be some truth to it. I don't know if that makes sense.
I see your point, but I've heard it before, and my response would be, well, it depends in what context, or what context are we talking? Because in some instances, race, so-called race, is taboo. I would agree, but in other contexts, it's definitely not. I mean, take the U.S. government. The U.S. government, I mean, for fuck's sake, the U.S. government even classifies people to this day in so-called race. So, okay, well, in the halls of the government, apparently race is not taboo at all. All right. So really what these people are talking about is the social context of it, like the the social sphere of it. That's really where you have a bit of a political correctness when it comes to this. And but yeah, then you also have to ask the question, well, what you claim to be controversial, is there really anything to it to begin with that would warrant it in the first place? And I mean, is there a taboo against the idea of race in popular media, for instance, in the mainstream media? I would say yes. But that doesn't mean that it's anything worth defending just because of that. Like, plenty of things are taboo and not worthy of being defended. I mean, a brother and sister getting it on is taboo. It doesn't mean that it should be allowed, though.
Sure.
You know, so not everything that's taboo is automatically something noble and worth of bringing into the spotlight. Like, sometimes there's a reason why it's kind of taboo. That being said, if you want to talk about so-called race, I think, of course, you should be. And I'm not one of those people who want to shut you down for talking about it. I mean, if you want to be a goofball and talk about them blacks, you know, eating their fucking fried chicken and having their grape drank, and shooting hoops and stealing televisions, and if you want to have your fucking little soapbox and standing on a street corner and shout that kind of nonsense around, I think you should be perfectly allowed to. And if anyone tries to shut you down, I'm going to fight that person because you have a right to speak. And know this, I think you should be heard, because that's the perfect inoculation of the general population against your nonsense. Because the only reason these people are actually getting any kind of traction is, like I said, it's because they've been driven into the underground and they're using the current meme culture as camouflage. Sunlight is the perfect disinfectant against the race realists. And what was I going to say? Let's see now. I think I lost my train of thought here.
Yeah, I personally don't go after it because I don't really know that much about it in order to add anything, really. And I just find the whole discussion really so toxic that I just thought, you know what, I'm not gonna bother. But mainly for me, I don't know anything about it in order to contribute at all in any meaningful way, personally.
Yeah, that's fine. I mean, I'm still largely very ignorant on the subject, and I hope to do more research about this so I can have an actual, formed opinion. Because I don't like saying something, like espousing a view when I don't even know all the facts about it, I don't want to have a Jordan Peterson moment, trying to avoid those moments as much as possible. But Sandre, can I ask you something about the race and IQ thing? A specific question?
All right, sure.
So I actually had a chat with an actual race realist. You might know his name, David Cedarwood.
Oh, that guy. Yeah.
Yeah. When I think it was him. It might have been someone else. But I remember when I was having a conversation with him. You can, you can check out my channel. There's did a whole podcast episode with him. He mentioned that that IQ is inherited, and that it's like between 50 and 80% genetic.
Oh God, this claim.
Yeah. How do you respond to that?
I've already responded to that claim in one of my IQ videos. There's this paper that's being thrown around from 2011, I think. And it's about how there are polygenic genes for intelligence and whatnot, and they found a 50% correlation or so between the different populations that they tested. And the problem, though, is all of these studies are they're not the kind of studies where you can draw that kind of conclusion. Like all those studies are these polygenic studies. They are simply just studies to find candidate genes to do further research on. So all these studies are saying, is that, well, these genes are interesting. They're overrepresented, but we won't know anything until we do further testing, and we need to do like knockout studies and stuff. So that's all those polygenic studies mean. And also, these people seem to think that intelligence somehow is a simple trait, like what kind of eye color are you going to have? What's your hair color? The thing is, like, it doesn't matter how you were raised. You know, if you have blue eyes, you have blue eyes. You're born with it. It's entirely 100% genetic. So it's a so-called simple trait in genetics. Complicated traits, complex traits, are those who are influenced by both genetics and environment. And the exact extent as to which genetics influence is hard to say. And intelligence is very much a complex trait. We know that environment plays a huge part when it comes to intelligence. And to in any way frame the idea of this as though intelligence is a simple trait that can easily be quantifiable in terms of inheritance and genetics is fundamentally dishonest, because it can't. It is a complex trait, and we know that environment plays a huge part in it. So to say that you have this percentage that you can say this is how much it's inherited or not, that's fundamentally dishonest, because you don't actually know that. And you know, it's very much possible that we may never know truly how much of intelligence, so-called, is actually genetic or not. And even then, you would only have an average for a population. It still wouldn't tell you anything about the individuals within the population, because guess what? Between individuals, you would still have variation of, well, in some individuals, it would really be more environment than genetics. In others, it would be more genetics than environment and whatnot. So all you could ever derive, if you ever got any kind of answer to this at all, which I simply don't think you ever will, but let's say that you did, it still doesn't actually solve anything, because you still have the individual question. Individually, people are still going to, you know, differentiate. So let's say that you actually found this number on average to be 50% of the genes, and the other 50% is due to environment. Let's just say for the sake of argument that this is the case. Well, you still have the problem that it is still just an average. On a case-by-case basis, people would still differ, you know, and in some cases you would have more environment playing more a more important role than genetics, and vice versa. So yeah, it still comes down to individuals, and that's what I find so fucking hilarious about all of this. It's like,
while they're promoting individualism, being an individual, and so on.
Oh yeah, I'm totally an individual. White power.
Oh my god. So okay. So would you be willing to maybe talk to a race realist in the future? Maybe if I could get one on this channel.
I mean, it's possible. The thing is, though, I haven't. The last video I did on the topic is like, what is it, like maybe 3 months ago, and I've just not felt like it lately, to be honest. I guess you can say that I'm sort of on a break when it comes to this right now. I'm just sort of focusing on other areas at the moment. That being said, I can definitely come back to race realism later on, and I don't see a reason why I wouldn't. But right now, I'm just kind of tired of the topic. I've already made several videos debunking these people. I'm not in a hurry. You know, the thing you got to keep in mind here is that these people go into damage mode whenever anyone like me responds to them, because they have to. I don't have to. I don't have to go into damage control or anything, because, you know, I'm not the one who has insufficient research to back up my case, or the research that they do have is very much very mysterious. Have you heard of the Pioneers Fund?
No.
Sounds familiar.
The Pioneers Fund is an alt-right, well, race realist rather, think tank. And almost all of these studies that these people push.
Wait, sorry to interrupt. Is that like in any way connected to the American Renaissance?
Yeah, it very much is. Very much is. There's definitely a clear connection. Right. And almost all of these studies that these people push as evidence of their case, almost all of them have been financed by this alt-right think tank. Oh, sorry, race realist think tank. Almost all of them, which is very interesting, because what you find with any study that I pull out is they have a multitude of backers. Some of them private, some of them governmental. There's a huge mix of them. But it's interesting that only really one think tank, and it's not even some officially recognized authority on the subject or anything. No. It's one think tank. That's what they have to back up their shit. That's very peculiar. Very not really what you could call, for the same. It's funny because these people, they talk about how there's apparently an echo chamber in academia, and ironically, it's really only one organization pushing their shit.
That,
Do you
okay.
think they might argue, just to play devil's advocate? Do you think they might argue like, oh, just because they are funded by this, that means therefore everything they say is like wrong? I'm sure they probably respond with that, saying, oh, just because this, therefore this, and they'll probably say that's not a good argument. You must not want to respond to our argument, so you just attack the people who fund us or something like that.
All right, so to that I would ask them, so if Marlboro funded a research project showing that cigarettes don't give lung cancer, I guess they wouldn't have a problem with it.
That's true.
Okay.
I mean, here's the thing. When it comes to scientific research, when it comes to pushing your papers, there is such a thing as a valid ad hominem. Just like in a court, you would not accept the testimony of someone who has something to gain from that testimony, right? So, for instance, you don't accept testimony from a brother in a court of law because, well, they're protective of their brother, perhaps.
Yeah.
Who may have robbed a store, so they're probably gonna lie in court just to protect their brother, which is natural. Or in a court of law, you're probably not going to accept it's the same thing in peer review. Or publishing a paper, you're probably not going to trust the research of someone who has something to gain from that research. That's just how it works. And if they don't like it, well, they don't have any place in fucking academia. That's literally how it works. It's a safeguard we have to make sure that you don't have bad ideas being spread without evidence. That's just how it works. And if they want to criticize that, well, they're being fucking hypocrites. Because they are the ones who want to, shut down academia in that case and spread their nonsense. But yeah, no, that's how it works. Just for the same reason that you wouldn't accept a paper showing that smoking doesn't give lung cancer if it was funded by Marlboro, there's no reason to think that there's any legitimacy to this because, like I said, it really is only this think tank and a very few other backers, mind you, who actually support this kind of research.
Okay.
That being said, also I would like to add another thing though, because I know what these people are going to say next. Well, there's a political correctness in academia against researching on this topic and blah blah blah. No, there really isn't. There really isn't. I don't know what the fuck these people are talking about. They talk about this political correctness in academia, shutting down research on race and whatnot. Motherfucker, have you looked at any kind of social science paper? I don't even need to go into any actual biological paper here. Just look at the social science papers, which without a doubt, social science is without a doubt the most politically correct of all institutions of academia, without a doubt. You will find plenty of papers using terms like black, Asian, and whatnot. Using racial epithets is not forbidden. It's actually the norm, even though there's no real scientific value to it. But it's usually the case in these papers that within the paper, they usually define what they actually mean by those terms. And it's just a way to sort of simplify the statistics. So yeah, no, they're like, no, you can find plenty of papers from other places in academia using the connotation of race without a problem. They're not shut down. You can even find scientific papers on so-called racial IQ by your mainstream universities in the US. It's not that hard to find them. The reason they don't bring those up though is that they usually don't support them. It's usually often the papers that are funded by this think tank and others like it. Those are the papers that they want to push. You see, which is very very interesting.
Okay, so I just wanted to point out that I believe it was Dralasta that actually made a video about it, and that's how I heard about.
Yes, yes,
Um,
that's very correct.
yeah. So you could say that like maybe this Pioneer Fund group, they're similar to kind of like what do you call this group? American College of Pediatrics. I think that's the name of the group, where it's like a science research group trying to pose them. No, it's a political group trying to pose themselves as like a research group, as a science group. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that.
No.
Maybe I got the wrong organization, but there is like a very political group that like like the name is very misleading. I think it is American College of Pediatricians, and it's actually like a very social conservative group that's very anti-transgender, anti-gay, that sort of stuff. The actual like legitimate group is like American Academy of Pediatricians. But my point is though is that like they're really just a political group, but they have that sort of title that gives a false sense that oh they're a research group, because oh look we have people with PhDs and whatnot.
I mean, I can give you another example just to highlight this. I've seen a couple of papers, for instance, like I think this is like 2, maybe 3 years ago. I had a couple of debates with people online about gay households, gay parenting, and whatnot. And I mean, I think gays should be allowed to adopt. I don't see a reason why not.
Sure.
But that being said, I saw a few papers being pushed by some LGBTQ, whatever the fuck kind of letter they want to add to the fucking alphabet soup at this point. But I saw a couple of papers being pushed by these organizations. And the reason I found them peculiar was because according to these papers, you see, apparently homosexual parents actually raised kids who were better off than heterosexual parents. And that sent off a red flag to me because I was thinking, wait, hold on. All right, I don't think there's anything wrong with gay parents. I'm sure they're capable of raising perfectly functional children just like straights. But I very much doubt, due to basic human biology, I very much doubt that they would actually raise better kids on average, like kids who did better on average compared to heterosexual parents. I very much doubt that, and I have to be honest about it. Wait, hold on. Let me just finish this because I'm getting to the point of this. So I decided to do some research into this, and I found a multitude of problems with all of these studies. And I've looked into like 13 of these studies so far. And all of them who claim that, oh, the gay parents, they raise kids who are, statistically better off, have lesser cases of crime and addiction and depression and whatnot and blah, 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 whatever. Apparently gay parents, they shit out fucking rainbows. But whatever. All of these studies had huge methodical problems. One of them was, I shit you not, they actually compare homosexual parents in the upper classes to the poorest parents who are heterosexual.
I don't see a problem with that. There's no issue there.
Yeah, sure. I mean, it's not like we know that poverty is a huge contributor to crime and addiction and depression and whatnot. It's not at all the case. But yeah, all of these papers, and I mean it, all of these papers had this problem where they claimed that gays produce better children who are better adapted to society and whatnot, better adjusted, and they honestly compare gay parents in the upper class compared to the poorest parents who are heterosexual, and that's a huge problem. Like that's fucking laughable.
Mm-hmm.
And what I noticed was when I started to do even deeper research into who funds this, guess what I found? All of this research was actually funded by LGBTQ groups.
No conflict of interest there.
Yeah, not at all, right? And when I looked into actual papers who have been done by social scientists who didn't have this backing, who had instead government grants and whatnot, these papers don't have that kind of result at all because they have a proper methodology, Can you imagine? And what they found was, on average, actually straight parents, they raise more adjusted kids. Like, it's not a big difference, mind you. between them and gay parents, but it is what you would expect based on basic human fucking biology, and that is what the data shows when you actually have proper methodology. And the point I'm making here is people need to, like, it does matter who funds the research, because that can mean that the data can be manipulated. We have several cases of this happening both in history and currently. I mean, again, take the tobacco lobby and how they pressured researchers that they funded to skew the data to show that no, smoking does not cause cancer. We know that. We also know that it's the exact same thing with the oil business. They do the same shit, which is why you should never read a study that is funded by Shell. You know, and of course, like I said, now with the LGBTQ movement, their lobby groups, you should not just take the, like, if you find out that the study, if you find out that the study is funded by one of their groups, you should be very fucking skeptical, and you should try and find out an equivalent study that is not funded by the same group and see if there's any validity to it. And like I said, you will notice a dramatic difference in the results.
Otterface, well, what were you about to say?
I just remember. I mean, I've just remember seeing like a few of them. And one of them was like from Cornell, and it's the university or something like that. And it was it basically just said that like the children of straight couples and children of gay couples, they're on equal footing when it comes to like, you know, how they turn out though. So like you know, it won't make any difference. Like one person won't. I'm trying to explain it, but like basically it said no one will be better or no one will be worse off. That's basically what it is. But I'll have to look into it. It said something similar to that, but it most likely probably linked to what you've said, Sandre.
I mean, it's again, I don't want to sound like you know, a fucking bigot here, but you know, there is something called biology.
You're the right-wing SJW.
You know? Yeah, I'm apparently a lot of things. I'm pissing off a lot of people, but see, that's what I do. It's what I do. Like people, I find it hilarious when these ideologues, they subscribe to me because they've seen a couple of videos where I take a shit on some of the people they don't like, and then I just upload a video where I take a shit on people that they like, and they're like, "Oh my god, I can't believe you did that. I'm unsubscribing." It's like, well, I really don't give a shit. Like I'm sorry, I stick to data. I'm an academic. This is what I do. I look at actual research, and guess what? Both sides are full of shit sometimes. It's just how it is. But you see, I have this very revolutionary idea, you know, that girls and boys are different, and when they grow up, they have different mental needs and psychological needs, and it would only make sense, considering that monogamy did evolve in our species, it would only make sense that boys and girls should do best, generally speaking, if they have a mother and a father in their household, or at least regular contact. Now, that does not mean that I don't think a gay parent household can't be loving and nurturing and good. Of course it can. I think, and this is what the data shows as well, it's still better, regardless, than a single parent household. So obviously it's still better, but I'm sorry, like at the end of the day, you have to realize facts that it's not the same, and it can't be the same. And it, you know, it's just the way it is. You know, sometimes reality isn't pretty. Sometimes it isn't what you want to hear. Sometimes it goes against some ideals that people have, but it doesn't make it any less of reality. You know, and like I said, even though gay parent households on average don't produce offspring that are, well, not offspring, but children rather, that they raise, that aren't, generally speaking, as well adjusted, it is still better than single parent households. And as such, I don't see a reason why they shouldn't be allowed to adopt, you know, because it's still far, far, far better than growing up without a parent or with a single parent. So yeah, I mean, it's still not something I think should justify taking away their right to adopt and whatnot, and that's not what I'm suggesting. I'm just like when I point out the gender differences, you know, men and women are different. It doesn't mean that a woman can't become a mathematician if she wants to. It just means that, hey, most women are probably not going to. It's just the way it is.
Oh, you gender realists are all the same.
No, you just want to oppress women.
Right. And I can actually mention a funny thing. I actually had this. I had this fucking moron who was into race realism, and he said,
You're a hypocrite because you admit that there's gender differences, but you won't admit that there's difference between race.
and I asked him this, and I think this was like this felt so good. I asked him, can you point to the black chromosome? Yeah, see, that's the thing. There's an there's an entire chromosomes difference between men and women. You know, that's a pretty big genetic difference. There is no such thing as the black or Asian or fucking Eskimo chromosome, right?
Right.
Like it's not equivalent, for fuck's sake. Just, you know, it's ridiculous.
All right, so we'll touch on one last topic. So I've seen some of your videos. I'm guessing you're a feminist, right?
No.
I'm just joking. Okay. So yeah, I guess this is a nice topic to finish, unless you wanted to talk about something else. So yeah. Why do you hate all women? Yeah.
I don't know what you're talking about. I mean, look, I believe in helping the less fortunate, and I mean, look at Otter here. I mean, she can barely talk, which is evidence in this evident in this live stream. And
Be oppressed.
I mean, I have to prop her up constantly, but that's just what I do. Because I fucking respect women.
There you go. That's good.
I respect the shit out of women. I respect women so much that if she wants me to take a literal shit on her, I will.
It's fantastic.
I mean, I'm truly a gentleman.
Good. We
So
need more gentlemen.
how many white knight points do I get?
Let's see. At the moment, 11.
Well,
Right.
women aren't getting
Just
mad.
don't call you male feminist, so that'll give me a reason to run away in the opposite direction.
Well, women aren't good in math, so I don't know if you're the best person to count that.
No.
Yeah, true.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So
In my case, it's definitely true.
okay. So yeah. Unless you want to clarify something more, I guess we can end it here.
I mean, I just have a question for you, actually.
Sure.
I mean, is that a picture of you?
Yeah, that is an actual picture of me. I kind of
Right, so,
regret using an actual picture of me, but now it's out there, so I don't really care at this point. But yeah.
So, I mean,
It's not
how much did the photographer have to airbrush to cover the pimples?
A lot. This was in my junior year of high school, so actually no, I think I put on a little bit of makeup actually. But yeah, he did airbrush a little bit.
Oh, don't lie, it's not a little.
A little?
I mean, I can tell there's like a bucket's worth of plaster on that shit.
It's been a while, but man, yeah, you're probably right. That's why a lot.
You see,
Yeah.
this is the thing. It's been like an hour and 20 minutes of me not being an asshole. So I have to. I'm sorry. It's a compulsion. I can't help it. I'm telling you.
It's fine. It's fine. Yeah. Now I even regret more using an actual picture myself. Shouldn't just went with a animal avatar or with you know, maybe a suit with my head on fire. I don't know, but yeah.
I mean, I don't know about you guys, but I think my selfie that I use as an avatar is just smoking.
Ah.
Okay,
did that?
I think that's enough puns for tonight. You know, I think that
That was utterly amazing.
I think that's enough puns for
Oh,
tonight.
bitch,
So-
please, you love it.
maybe just a little. Okay. So, Sandre, thanks for coming on the show. If anyone would like to check out Sandre's channel, there should be a card somewhere on the screen. If not, there's a the link is in the description below. Otterface, thanks for co-hosting. Also, I really appreciate it. You can check out her channel in the link in the description below. Yeah, anything else you guys want to say to the non-existent audience?
I would just like to ask them, what the fuck are you doing with your lives? Watching this, all two of you.
Oh,
I'll just say I'll just say to them, have a lovely day. There
all
you
right,
go.
cool. Well, until then, stay classy.
Dave.
Stay classy.
Bye.